Based on the J.G. Ballard novel of the same name, Empire of the Sun tells the story of Jamie Graham, played by a baby-faced Christian Bale.
What's your name?
I'm Batman.
The son of a wealthy British family living in Shanghai during the Second World War.
I'm terribly sorry.
However, Jamie is suddenly separated from his parents following the Japanese invasion of China, forcing him into the streets where he befriends a pair of American street hustlers named Basie and Frank, played by John Malkovich and Joe Pantoliano. Unfortunately, the trio is soon captured and put in a prisoner of war camp, and the rest of the film follows Jamie's efforts to escape captivity and by some miracle make his way back to his family. Well, anything and everything that can possibly go wrong in this little kid's life does go wrong in this little kid's life.
It's starting to get on my nerves.
Funnily enough, Spielberg wasn't actually the first choice to direct this picture. The job was originally offered to David Lean, given his experience making big budget epics, with Stevie Boy acting as a producer. Lean ended up developing the project for over a year, but eventually handed directing duties to Spielberg as he couldn't figure out how to approach the story. I worked on it for about a year, and in the end I gave it up because I thought it was too similar to a diary. It was well written and interesting, but I gave it to Steve in the end.
Thank you!
Spielberg found the project to be very personal, as he had been fascinated by stories of World War II told to him as a child by his father, and he was a huge fan of the movie The Bridge on the River Kwai, which he found to be thematically similar to Empire of the Sun. When casting the role of Jamie, over 4,000 young actors auditioned for the part. Bale was eventually selected at the insistence of Spielberg's wife at the time, who had worked with him on the TV movie Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna. Stephen wasn't a fan of Bale's performance in the film, but he agreed to give the young lad an audition and was so won over by his charm and skill, he gave him the part.
I know just the man.
Filming began at Elstree Studios in March 1987 and lasted 16 weeks before shifting to Shanghai for another 21 days, which was actually quite a big deal, as this was the first Hollywood production to be filmed in the city since the 1940s. Around 5,000 locals also signed up as extras, many of whom were old enough to actually remember the invasion when it happened 40 years prior.
That's the idea.
Empire of the Sun was released on December the 25th, 1987, because nothing screams Christmas like World War II invasions.
It might be a bit strange.
And reviews were positive, particularly for Bale's performance and Spielberg's direction. However, its box office intake was noticeably lower than his previous films, only grossing $66 million on a $25 million budget. He would later claim Empire of the Sun wasn't a very commercial project. It wasn't going to have a broad audience appeal, but I like to think I've earned the right to fail commercially. Thankfully, the movie would find greater success through home video and television reruns. The film went on to be nominated for 6 Academy Awards, but unfortunately didn't win any. And Spielberg was controversially snubbed for Best Director again, something that cinematographer Alan Duvall took great issue with. I can't second guess the Academy, but I feel very sorry that I get nominations and Steven doesn't. It's his vision that makes it all come together, and if Steven wasn't making these films, none of us would be here.
Yes, of course.
Nevertheless, the film also won 3 BAFTAs for its sound design, cinematography and musical score. Ben Stiller would go on to cite the film as an influence for his movie Tropic Thunder, and the movie is often regarded as one of Spielberg's most underrated efforts of the 1980s. And the film certainly has a... Okay, I hate to be that guy, but this kid clearly looks directly at the camera. Poor form, Stevie! Oh, who am I kidding? I love to be that guy. But the movie certainly does have a truly mesmerising opening as a choir plays, with establishing shots of the war to set up the film. It really is quite entrancing.
Well, they've left us alone so far.
Lockwood's invited a chink.
You know, Steve, with this and the original title for 1941, it's not really giving you a great look.
Yeah, you two keep getting presented. Meanwhile, we'll be up to our asses in junk, eating rats when the Japs walk in.
It says here, property of Amelia Earhart. I have to say, this is one of the greatest child performances I have ever seen. The character of Jamie is really sweet and charming at the beginning as he pretends to shoot at his toy plane, but then he climbs over the trench to come face to face with a bunch of Japanese soldiers. Okay, that is terrifying. There is so much suspense, it is unreal, and the slow reveal really adds to it. He starts off as a kid just trying to question the logic of the war, which is really interesting.
Soldiers look as if they're waiting for something to happen.
Yes.
But they didn't look angry or anything.
Wait, why is he smiling at people who are running for their lives, little sicko? Him and his parents are attacked in their taxi, so they have to go out on foot, but this scene is one of the most intense in the entire movie. The music gradually builds up, and my god, they get separated, but his dad urges his wife to stay with Jamie before she also gets separated. It is heartbreaking, and Bale kills it. If this doesn't tug at your heartstrings, well, you're just not a nice person. He gets stuck in the crossfire and has to hide with some other soldiers before returning to his house on his own. You have so much sympathy for this character. He finds some powder on the floor, and this is such a clever scene. There's no music, there's no dialogue. He just notices footprints and supposed claw marks and puts together the clues to figure out what happened. Yeah, no wonder Alfred hired him, jeez. Although Jamie clearly sees a notice that says the Japanese have taken over the house, but is then surprised to see the Japanese have taken over the house.
Where's my mother and father? Do you know?
Well, that was rude. In fact, that happens a lot during this film.
Get up here when I say left.
Although he slaps that soldier back and his reaction is hilarious. Jesus Christ, eat with your mouth closed, you animal! Then I guess Spielberg decided to inspire Home Alone a few years later. It's a nice touch to add some makeup to make him look more pale and malnourished as he roams the streets, unable to keep up with the truck with other civilians on it.
American boy! American boy!
English!
Actually, you're Welsh. Lying little shit. Although somehow the Japanese mocking the starving kid actually seems meaner than anything they did to the Americans. It's just not nice. He ends up begging to be arrested by Japanese troops, but they all refuse to even acknowledge his existence, which is even more heartbreaking than if they just locked him away. He even gets abandoned by Malkovich and co, but still begs to be with them. Bale is such a great talent, even this early on, as he's forced to stand and watch Malkovich get the shit kicked out of him. He's also such a kind-hearted kid who refuses to wear clothes that Basie steals from the dead. Originally, this section of the film was actually going to be much longer, but had to be cut down for time, and I think the pacing is spot on. But Basie then starts acting like he doesn't even know Jamie, so he can be taken to freedom. Over time, he does seem to find a place within the community, which is quite sweet, and this whole section is a really wholesome portion of the otherwise depressing story. Malkovich as Basie gives such a great performance, to the point he's a complete dick who abandons Jamie several times, but you know he'll forgive him every time because he doesn't have anyone else, and yet you still love to watch him on screen. Obviously, Spielberg gives some great shots, even if the little kid is about to watch some sex.
Somebody lobbed a grenade.
Well, yes. Why was that delivered like it was this huge revelation and then there was an epic transition? You were on the enemy's turf, they fired at you, so someone threw a grenade. Yes, Basie. What's the big deal? So what? There's another really intense scene where they send Jamie over to the Japanese land, because of course they do. And one of them sneaks in after him to investigate. You could hear a pin drop, it is that intense. The music is subtle and not overdone. Meanwhile, Basie and his mates, one of which is played by Ben Stiller, by the way, very strange, are placing bets on if he will survive or not. And his Japanese friend actually helps him by sending the soldier in the wrong direction, who somehow steps over Jamie without realizing. Idiot. No wonder they lost the war.
Don't let me down, kid. You're an American now.
Hey, no need to insult the poor kid, alright? He's been through enough. We also get a Lord of the Rings-like moment as Jamie sings during a Japanese march and they all stop to listen. It's really atmospheric. Right before we go back to more destruction, this whole sequence was actually supposed to be filmed in one continuous take. But this didn't work as Bale became frightened of the explosions going off around him. So Spielberg worked around it by filming him in close-ups. He ends up completely breaking down, realizing that he doesn't even remember what his parents look like. Man, Bale could bring Brock Lesnar to tears with this performance. Before Basie ditches him again. Jesus, why is he even surprised at this point? You can't help but feel sorry for the kid. He's lost everything, and it's supported by one of the greatest child performances in history. It's such a great moment as he finally gets some food and...
We'll take the lot.
But you know what else this film is missing? More death! Yep, his one and only friend dies. And damn, Jamie must have super strength to trip a grown man and send him flying this far. And then he goes to town on him.
He gave me a mango!
There's a line you don't hear very often.
I can bring everyone back.
Couldn't bring the Terminator franchise back there, could you? Parents are reunited with their kids, and I kinda saw this coming, but I feared that it would be incredibly cliche, but thankfully it's not really. His father doesn't even recognize him until his mother does. It's such a heartwarming moment, even if the dad looks really disappointed. Oh great, I thought we got rid of the little shit. Empire of the Sun is easily one of the greatest and most severely underrated movies I have ever seen. And it baffles me that it's not in the 1001 movies you must see before you die. It's an amazing central performance, an incredible story, brilliant cinematography and visual storytelling. It's definitely a must watch on everyone's bucket list.